legendary Charleston television news anchor Bill Sharpe is retiring from WCSC-TV Live 5 News after 48 years as an anchor. Today, I talk one-on-one with his former competitor, Lyles of WCBD, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Lyles, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Hi, Quintin. Congratulations on all the great things that have happened for you in the last year.
Thank you so much.
Had a lot of good success.
Yes, through the grace of God. Thank God for that. And Jesus, of course. But it's so great to have you here on Quintin's Close-Ups. I think this has been almost a decade in the making.
I know. We talk about it all the time, and I watch it all the time, of course, too.
Oh, thank you so much.
I run into you more than I run into anybody, because you're always downtown.
That's right, where I am right now.
Yeah.
But, I love doing research. And, I went back to the Post and Courier high profile that Frank Quintin did on you back in '94 when you were anchor at Channel 2. And you told Frank Quintin at the time this quote, "When I was a little girl, we didn't play with Barbies. We didn't have dolls. We had paints, pens, and pencils to draw with. None of our toys were made out of plastic." Let me ask you this, Leslie.
Okay.
If you could get some paint, pens, and pencils now and some paper, how would you draw your life today?
Oh, Quintin, you're such a master of the question. That's such a good question. I would just draw all the beautiful things I see today. So today I take my walk. What do I see? Purple flowers, beautiful trees, beautiful sky, mountains today. So I would draw my life, but the things I see, because I'm curious about things. I like to, engage in the things that are around me, and that's a great question. So I would draw every day differently, I think. And of course, I suspect you're saying, would I put my children in it? You know how much I love those boys. Yes. You know Clay, right?
Yes.
So, but just in answering the question today, as you posed it, it was a beautiful day today, so I'd paint this beautiful day today.
And what part of you, when it comes to the curiosity, brings out the journalist in you?
Oh, I think it's a protective instinct. To protect people, to always look out for them, for human rights, personal rights. It really is about that, I think. And then just telling people's truthful stories and providing important information, I think, when necessary. About our safety and our health and all those things, I care about.
Oh, yes, indeed. And another thing you care about and I care about, obviously, is God. And back in '94, you told Frank Quintin this. He's now retired from the Post Courier, but you said this, it's all about finding out where God wants you to be. I'm still trying to find out where God does God want me to be now? And what does He want me to do? Yeah, I did a lot of research on that. But what has your conversation been with God these days?
I was just saying to a friend the other night, I said, "Are you saying your prayers? What are you saying?" I think that my conversation has been, and this is a blessing, it's been thank you.
Yeah.
I'm just very happy and I'm just grateful. Things, life has worked out nicely and we're coming through this hard time with this pandemic and my boys are good and, I'm grateful. So that the conversation has mostly been about being grateful. And, Mother Teresa allegedly said, when people asked her, what do you pray for? She said, I listen. And I think that's important too, just to be quiet and listen.
Speaking of listening and having conversations, Leslie, let me bring you back here home. Obviously, the big conversation right now is about Bill Sharpe, the legendary low country news anchor, is retiring after 48 years at Channel 5. And he said this quote recently: "It's been a great ride, a great blast. Thanks to the low country for putting up with me all these years." Let me ask you this.
That's so classic.
Yeah, that's him. That's right.
Because he is the best at what he does, and he's also so incredibly humble, and he's so brilliant, but he'll say things in that lovely, simple fashion. And, I knew you were going to ask me about him today, and it's just a delight to think about him because he is exactly the same kind of person in real life as he is on the air. He's completely engaged in whatever it is you are doing. And I tell you, one of his great gifts, I think, is that, and I'm lucky to know this, he's an encourager. he is the first person to call you and say, good job, or you'll be okay, or he's the first person to call you if you get a national spot, if you're on Good Morning America or something like that, and you set your phone ringing like back in the day. That's Bill saying, "Hey, I caught it." He's so supportive, and just a wonderful guy. I mean, just what a loss. I can't imagine not turning on the TV and seeing him.
Or Debbie.
Yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. What a class act. And those two together were just so beautiful. Like, there are those few occasions where something really big is happening. So we all get to sit near each other because we're all broadcasting live while an event's going on, like base closure or something big, And I always noticed how Bill would always pull out the chair for her, always hand her something. They were hand in glove, just a lovely TV couple, if you will, a pair that worked so beautifully together. I learned so much from those guys.
Oh, yes. And earlier today, while I was doing my research for this interview, I was looking back at an old clip of my old good friend, the late Dee Crosby, and obviously she was there to do that coverage of the base closure then.
Yeah.
Speaking of coverage and obviously competition, what was Bill like as competition?
Oh, my gosh. He was fun, for one thing. I didn't run into him a million times doing things like that, but every time we were in the same locale covering something, or like one time after the Gulf War, we did a big telethon. All of us did. It was a super fun day, and he'd just always walk over. He had time for you, always talking to you, and then you'd run into him like I always run into you, just doing our normal things. And I always noted about him that he really was exactly the same in person as he was. He made everything bigger than life. Like my friend Dan Ashley, who I adore, would tell a story about running into Bill, and Bill was buying a pair of shoes. And he can make anything he's doing, or anything that's happening, or anything he's writing a story about, telling you about, fascinating. So Bill wasn't just getting a pair of shoes. He's buying a pair of shoes, Dan. I mean, it's just going to be something memorable every time you meet him. And I'll tell you something else that I was thinking about him today, too, if you don't mind my jumping ahead. When I went off to another job many years ago, he sent me flowers. And he didn't just send me flowers. He sent them to my house. And my favorite flower was the white calla lilies, big white Casablanca lilies, those big, beautiful flowers. They're lovely flowers. They're hard to get, I think, sometimes. I don't know how he found out that was my favorite flower. When I opened the card, I was just so surprised and just touched beyond touch that he would do something like that. But that's the kind of person he is. He thinks about other people before he thinks of himself, and I think it's evident every day when he does his job so well.
So well, and you told Frank back in 1994 this quote, "I think all of the newscasters in the city are really great. There's something about each newscast that I like better than others." What was unique about Bill and Debbie and Live 5 News?
Oh gosh, well, for me, I got to say, look, I go back to being able to remember Happy Rain, and there's a reason that television station is on Charlie Hall Boulevard, because these guys are legends. I mean, I have chills just talking about them now. I spent 20 years trying to do what they do, and I assure you they could all do it better than I do. But they taught me a lot just by watching them. And I think that, one thing about that team and all the various partners who've come in and out of that place, that's a powerhouse station. They know how it's done. They know how to make a story compelling. They're hard to beat, because it's easy to say, oh, I'll just turn those guys on. And that's the challenge, and that's what makes it fun, is to go up against those guys, try to win it once. Oh,
you did?
I don't know, maybe not. They're probably all going, no, they didn't. I'm not. I don't know. How about pretty much never? But I think maybe that then what I was saying was, their team was more established. We were a little bit younger. We were going after a different audience, and we were doing a lot of investigative stuff back then. They do the day to day as good or better as they could. They're just great. They're always have been great.
How did you make the story compelling on TV2 Action News, TV2 Eyewitness News as well?
Oh yeah, I still call it TV2.
Right, to me too.
Yeah, when I go back to those old names. I try to personalize every story. So, and sometimes I hated doing it because sometimes bad things happen and you have to speak to it and people understand why you're asking the question. So I remember one time, this is sort of a bad story, but I'll just tell you, something really tragic happened and some people were killed, and there were very few people to talk to about it, and it was just shocking. It happened up in Hampton County, I think, and I didn't have a lot of information about it, but it was a heartbreaking story about a husband and his wife who were gone. And so they were staying at a hotel, and I asked the woman who'd been working, "Do you remember anything about them? Can you just tell me, did you see them do anything? What were they like?" Because I was trying to personalize them. And the last thing she remembered was that they had bought a carton of milk for their coffee in the morning. And it was just really touching to try to find some way to honor that couple with their last romantic moment,
Wow. Speaking of personalizing things, how did you all personalize that newscast? Because you guys were iconic as well, in addition to Bill and Debbie and Dean Swanson.
Well, we just laughed a lot, as you know. we would make fun of ourselves, and and I got to say, this. Those guys are still my best friends, right?
Yes.
Dan and Rob and Cara. Do you run into me and Cara periodically?
Right.
Yes. So
when you all went to the hotel that day, remember? Yeah.
That's right. We were so tired of COVID. We had our own little vacation at home, and we wore a mask and rode bicycles and just tried to have some fun in the middle of that weird beginning of COVID. Yeah. But yeah, we just tried to make it fun, and we really liked all the investigative stuff back then. Those were in the days, Primetime Live and Diane Sawyer and Sam Donaldson, who, by the way, I was lucky enough to get to meet when I was working in St. Louis, and what a class act. I mean, just so nice. And he invited us to come in and help him rewrite a script as if, we were capable of helping him with something, which he certainly didn't need any help, but he did it because he's nice. And that's the kind of person Bill Sharpe is too.
Yes.
He's just, he's so talented.
Yes.
He makes it look effortless. And also he owns it, so he doesn't have to worry about it. So he's always there to help the next guy feel good about what he or she is doing,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you write a story, Leslie?
Well, Quintin, how do you write a story? You do it as well as anybody.
I just ask questions these days.
I know, but it's the same thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, I always would say, if you really want to know, it's like painting a picture, because you have the tools. You have the sound, you have the video, and then you write to the video, and that's the beauty of it. And less so now, since so often what we do, you can't. You have to. It's a little bit different because a lot of time what you do is on the radio or whatever, and so you write to it a little bit differently. But I used to like to write to what you saw, behind it. So, like, if you were going to see I told this when I did a special with Rob on the hurricane, that when we got downtown afterwards, boy, the steeples were all torn up, and you could look at that picture of the pictures of the steeples, and you could write, "The city looks scorned," and you knew it was a reference to the holy city, or I hope so. You try to write in a way that makes it a little poetic, if you can, sometimes, without being sappy. You have to judge depending on what you're writing about. And that was my philosophy on it. I love to write.
Yes,
I love to write them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just sitting. I'm sitting 2 blocks away from obviously Grace Episcopal and Wentworth Street. So, but when you think about Hugo, 32 years later, where are you emotionally?
Oh gosh, I did that special with Rob.
Right.
Maybe it would be almost 2 years now.
Right.
I got teary, and I think of it. I don't know. I mean, I said in that special, and it's so true, that for years we always referred to what happened before Hugo or after Hugo, and I'm not sure exactly when that stopped, but emotionally I think about it, and I think it's somebody else's turn to cover it, and I know that it hopefully won't happen again, in our lifetimes, but those stories do happen, and I always think about the people who are covering them. Like recently I had spent the 4th of July with this delightful couple on the Isle of Palms, and their daughter is with CNN, and she was really, really emotionally torn up, having spent time at that apartment building that collapsed. Yeah. And I really felt for her because, and I think younger people today, they know more about their mental health. You know, they know when it's time to take a break and to say to their parents or their boss or their friends, hey, this is really affecting me. And in our day, we just weren't quite there. You know, and I think that a lot of us carried a lot of exhaustion and baggage from that, and we didn't realize it really until years later, you know. But I think younger people today, and also the television stations too, they look out for people's well-being, I think, a little bit better, because we know these things now, how important that is.
Right, absolutely. And
Yeah.
you said this too, quote, this TV thing is great. I love it, and I'm going to work on it some more, but that's not my life. I could reinvent myself tomorrow. Obviously, you did that.
Oh, yeah. So funny.
I know.
I don't know, Quintin. How did I reinvent myself? You see me. I just have a good time, don't I? I just
Right.
enjoy my friends, my family, and I work on projects when I get a chance to. And I love it when somebody I know needs a hand with something, and I get to shoot it or write it, or even lug some equipment around. And look, I saw the funniest thing. I when we had the riots,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Right here.
yeah, and it was quite a thing, and I kind of stepped out blind to it, and I called Rob. I hadn't seen. What I'm saying is, I hadn't seen a lot of it yet. Even on social media, I had been eating, and I had my phone turned off, and it was blown. When I turned it back on, it had blown up. And Rob called and said, "Where are you? And, can you meet us on the corner? We're just looking for an interview, really, with somebody. We've got to kill this time. We have to keep it going. And can you just tell us what you see?"
Right.
And now when you live stream, people write the live comments, and that people were like, "Oh, that's nice. It's nice to see her." Or, "Oh, good. Oh, what? Who is that?" Or whatever. And somebody wrote, "Oh God, Leslie is bored. See her. She's got to go. She just wants to go out there and pretend she's coming." They're absolutely right. I was dying to do it because I love that stuff. If something happens,
Yes.
I'm the first person to beg for them to put me up and let me cover it.
Right. And
It's totally true.
totally true. And what is different these days with television news versus, social media? We didn't have social media in the early 90s and the late 80s. What's the difference in your mind?
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind when you ask, there are so many ways we could, go about talking about that because it's so different. But I think the meanness.
Yes.
I really, 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 I was talking to Dan about it, and we were talking just about some things with me and what I was going to do next and whether I should work on a certain something or other. He goes, Les, don't take this the wrong way, but this has gotten really brutal because people say the meanest things because they can, and you just have to kind of get over it. And frankly, I don't know if it's worth it. I don't know if you would like it. And I thought, wow, that is really so sad that, my dearest friend would have to warn me off doing something because people can be mean-spirited. And it's just another form of bullying, and it affects people. So I really, when I see these men and women, younger people going out there, they're really putting themselves out there. And they're shooting a lot of stuff on their phones now. They're watching in real time what people are saying about them and the way they covered it. And they're doing it pretty flawlessly. I mean, imagine right now if we could read people speaking about us and judging us, it's a lot. And this is true, as we know, we saw what happened with Facebook this week, and it's a problem. And we've got to put some kind of lid on it for people's well-being, I think. It's just not right. It's not fair.
Yeah,
so I think that's a challenge, one of the many new challenges.
Hopefully we can go back to the old days when, people respected the media and all that stuff. So,
well, I talk to my boys about this a lot, and I think that I've gotten them, they're on board and they understand it. It's different. The laws have changed. Yeah. And, back in the day, it was all fair and balanced, and the laws changed, and cable took it another way. And so it's divided people. But back in the day, it was a little bit differently, done a little differently. And I don't think people really understand that dividing line, that cable can do this and broadcast can do that, and what's fair and balanced, and who do you trust. It's difficult to navigate.
Yeah, and people trusted you all back then, so that was so good to see and hear. Who would
Yeah, I
let
mean, back in the day, they did trust you,
Yes.
because if you made a mistake, you were going to lose your job. You were absolutely in fear of saying something that wasn't accurate.
Right.
And it's hard to be right all the time and accurate. People are going to make mistakes. So,
Sure.
and now it's just a little different.
Different. And who would Leslie Lyles be now as an anchor here in Charleston?
What do you mean by that?
How would
What would be the most important thing to me?
No, who would you be now as an anchor? Would you be opinionated? Would you be straight down the line? Would you be fair and balanced?
Oh, I'd be fair and balanced. But because that's what I do. I don't do I
Right.
don't do talk show. I don't like that.
Right.
It's just not something
Right.
like, but I'm a mother.
Yes.
And I do have this motherliness that comes out now. I just, I really look out for people, and I just, I'd be a little different maybe. And I think maybe a little less, self-conscious. Because it's always better when it's about the other person. That's what a good interview is about, and, so I'd hope I'd be in some ways better.
Yes,
But I couldn't
ma'am.
keep up with everybody who does it now. Everybody's really talented.
Yes, yes, they are.
They're so talented.
Talented. And speaking of which, now that Bill Sharpe is obviously retiring from Live 5 on October 28th, why do you view local news now going forth?
How do I view it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, well, I just really enjoy it. I mean, and I travel a lot, so I get to see what everybody else is doing. And there's some really fun morning shows out there now with really talented people. And I think that people coming out of school, too, have so much more experience doing this, being in front of the camera. Everybody has a lot of experience with it. So people just get right out of the chute. They're really good at communicating. So I don't know. I love the local news and I love the local news when it's done by people that I love, like my buddies at TV2.
Yes.
You got your Rob Fowler. You got and then somebody like Bill. Since this is Bill's time, he makes it compelling. He's a brilliant storyteller, and I can remember sitting with Dan one day, and sometimes, especially back in the day, Quintin, you would know about this too, that, your live shot goes down, something else goes down, and all of a sudden the producer says, okay, you have 3 minutes to kill. So you got to just tap dance, or they're handing you stories and something. And I remember they handed me a story to read just to kill the time. And you read these things cold. You don't want to. It happens rarely. But you read it cold, and in the commercial break, Dan goes, what was that? I don't know, but I tried to read it like it was fascinating. What was that? It's not something that happens often, but in an emergency situation, you're reading something blind, and you're just trying to, get people just, bear with us until we get through this one. And then, once we get back from the commercial break, it'll be just fine. But just hang on just a little bit.
Yes. Yes, ma'am. You know what? I wanted to ask you this right after this. You told me about the story that happened, unfortunately, in Hampton County. But let me ask you, how would you, as a journalist and a reporter, because I know right before you left Channel 2, you were obviously a reporter, so that they would allow Nina to become an anchor.
Yeah, for a couple of weeks. That was great. It was the first time I worked the day shift. I did it for like 2 weeks. I worked the day shift, and I was like, this is what it's like to go home at 6 o'clock. It's amazing. I'm sorry, what was your question?
No, you're good. That was good. I never knew that until now. But how would you have covered, because I'm sitting 2 blocks away from Upper Emmanuel AV Church, how would you have covered that story as a journalist?
Wow, I watch that every day. I would have honored the way everyone involved in that handled themselves with more grace, more dignity, and more compassion than it would seem to be humanly possible. The level of goodness and grace among the men and women affected by this and by the community was just such an example. I mean, we showed them how it's done. It was a terrible, awful, shocking, that words can't, express how horrific this thing was. But somehow there was a beauty to it too. And it was, whatever your faith is, whatever where whatever you do, it was, you know, it was biblical. I mean, it was just, it was for the forgiveness and the love and the compassion and the eyes wide open to try to use something awful to find some kind of goodness to share with everyone. I mean, I just, beauty out of tragedy. I just.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And before I let you go, Leslie, you said this too many, many years ago. I was surprised to go back and get all this done, but
Yeah.
you said this, set goals for yourself early in life. Don't be afraid to change them. And don't let anybody ever tell you you can't do something. What were those goals that you set early on in life that you eventually had to change?
Oh, well, I think when I had the boys, everything changed. And I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't prepared for that. You know, that, you know, you're going to love them more than you love yourself, but you just love them so much. And also it's very time consuming, you know, and, that working the night shift and being called in at all hours, it's a tough one. You know, you have to make some choices there. So that was, you know, something that had to give for me, and rightly so. And it was a good thing. It worked out just fine. And we were all the better for it. But I think that was the thing that was, you know, most unexpected was, you know, by the time Clay came around, I just wanted to be with them, and I didn't want the focus to be on me too, you know. I wanted the focus to always be on them.
Yeah.
Eyes on them.
Exactly right. What goals are you setting right now, heading into the future?
Oh, well, so lately I've been, and I've been off of it a little bit because I'm on vacation, you know, but I've really been working on my health, and
Yes, ma'am.
that was the play. I'm working on my health and healthful eating, and I'm really interested in functional medicine, to the point of being very annoying to some people. But I just, you know, there's a really good documentary. I think maybe Netflix has it, Forks Over Knives. And whether you believe everything in it, I don't know. But the idea is that if we focus on mindfulness and keeping ourselves calm and eating well, we'll be happier and healthier. And I am in full agreement with this. I'm a big believer in things like omega-3 fatty acids for your mental health, and your overall well-being. You know, no processed foods. You know, sometimes, but just try to eat really clean most of the time, and you'll be the better for it, I assure you.
I assure you. Wow, that's amazing. That is really, really amazing.
So, yeah, I focus on that. And then I've been studying a lot of things. I'm really interested in ancient civilizations, and I am just kind of collecting thoughts on that for documentary and things like that I'm thinking about. And I love reading about it and studying history.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
And traveling.
Traveling, that's right.
Many things. Lots of things. Just everything I know. Talking to you, Quintin. Hoping every time I come downtown, hoping I'll run into you.
Oh, yes, absolutely. What do you want the local television news history to say about you as a journalist?
Oh, gosh. Probably nothing, but if they ever had to, I suppose, you mean if I died? But I died. I hope that they would say that I was a good friend to everybody, and that I tried to write things in a certain way. That's it. I mean, I hope they would say that I was kind.
Yes.
And that I was tried to be fair and honest.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's why we love you all, and still to this day, people still talk about you and Dan Ashley and Rob Power.
We just love each other.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're family.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Ted Knight. Yeah. We're just family. I tell you something. You want to hear a cool Ted Knight story really fast?
Yes.
Ted hypnotized me one time. I was having a really, really hard time. Ted had lived in Arizona, where people, you know, do things a little differently, and he had all these techniques, and he pulled me aside one day and he said, "Listen, you are having a hard time. I know it. You're nervous, and I think I can fix it." And so he taught me a lot of relaxation techniques, and I think it was just the loving way he did it, but worked. And I mean, immediately. And boy, what a class act Ted was. He was a great great human being and a good cook too.
Yes. Oh yeah. And action line. Action line.
Action line. And he talking about someone who always had time for people. Always had time for people. Lovely people. I mean, you make me remember how lucky I am, Quintin.
Yes. Yes. You're one of the
You've
best.
known all these people.
Yeah. You're the best that have come to this city. So we thank you for your public service to us as well.
Oh, it's an honor, Quintin. And being on your show is an honor. So thank you. Touch my heart.
Thank you. Well, Leslie Lyles, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome to the award-winning Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thank you, Quintin. I love your show. And you know I love you like my own child. So, and one of these days when I call you up for pizza, you're going to say, hey, Leslie, I'm not too busy. I'm going to come.
I'm going to come.
I know you're always so busy.
Yeah, I'm going to probably run out there because that's what I do a lot now. I just run everywhere now.
I know. I see you.
And I have my running shoes on today.
You always do. I tell you what, Quintin, there's nobody who works harder and has a bigger heart and does a better job. You're something else. As Congress noted recently, isn't this true?
Yes, ma'am.
They did, didn't they?
Yes, they did.
Who else can say that?
And thanks be to God and Jesus Christ.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Quintin. I'm going to see you soon, I hope. Thanks
I'll be
so much
down
for
here.
having me on.
Thank you.